Okay, I'm not sure if we're live yet, so hold on a second, people. If you are watching right now and we are live, you can let me know because the one thing about using Zoom is that you never know if you're live when you're live. So it's kind of a crazy thing. But let me find out if we're live really quick here. And in the meantime, in case we're live, I'll go ahead and introduce my guest. Today we have Kelley O'Brien. She's the Director of Social Media for Krispy Kreme. And I'm just going to assume we're live right now, Kelley. Is that okay with you?
It looks like it is. Sure, I'm good with that.
Okay, it does look like we're live. Yay, awesome. So you guys, I want to introduce you to Kelley. And Kelley is the Director of Social Media at Krispy Kreme. Everybody say yum, yum, because if you love Krispy Kreme like I do, you love your Krispy Kreme. My favorite is the one that has a little bit of chocolate on top, and then it has a cream feeling, not the
It's not
yellow
a custard.
Yeah, not is there there's a one that has like a cream instead of a custard,
Yes.
right?
We have a
Yeah.
cream. It's our signature cream.
Oh, it is. No wonder it's so good. I love that.
That's right.
That's my absolute favorite. But that's not her whole bio. So hold on a second. So she joined Krispy Kreme in 2011. She and her team implement programs and campaigns for the global branded social media channels and branded digital platforms. Kelley and her team developed the best practices for the regional branded social media channels across the globe, connecting over 11 million people. And Kelley and her team provide strategies to local teams and manage communities living out the brand's mission to bring joy to fans. I, for one, Kelley, got to say you bring a lot of joy to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So it's good to have you here. Today I wanted to, first of all, ask you, what's your favorite? The most important question.
Well, I love the apple fritter more than anything else in the world. And if you've never had an apple fritter, I got to watch from the time that, like making them. And I actually have spent like 8 hours at a time making donuts, or
Oh,
if
really?
not more. So it's a true immersion into the brand when you first come on board and then through lots of holidays. And so that's just one of my favorite. Every time I see it in the case, I'm like running. So we try not to have it every single day downstairs.
Okay.
Like a million of them if I could, but that is my favorite. And then the blueberry cake, glazed blueberry cake is amazing. So
I've never even heard of that one.
yes,
Can you
it's
please
really
send it to California for us?
sure. Well, I'm coming out to California next month, so I'll make sure I have it with me.
Well, you'll be here for Social Media
Sorry.
Marketing World.
Yes, that's right. I keep thinking it's January. I know it's February. So
It's 2 weeks, Kelley. It's 2
I
weeks.
know.
Can you believe it?
That's right.
Oh my gosh. So she will be here for Social Media Marketing World. And I saw that she was one of the speakers. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to reach out to her and see if I can go and bring her on the show and share, what she's going to be sharing at the event, as well as some other things like her favorite donuts.
That's right.
Well, I got to ask you this question. You work in the corporate office. Is that correct?
Correct.
So in the corporate office, are you guys making donuts every day?
We don't have a machine here to make the donuts, but our flagship store is right around the corner. I mean, literally, it's probably like 2 blocks away at most. And the donuts are shipped in quite often throughout the day and for any meetings or anything like that we need or want. So we have 2 cases. We have the visitor case, and then we have our own member case. So it's great. And also any like extensions of where our offices are, or anything like that, or other partners, we'll have cases there too.
Okay, I'm just like a little bit jealous. Maybe I'm a lot bit jealous because I remember the very first time. We're going to get into the social media stuff in just a second, but I just want to just talk about my experience at Krispy Kreme. I remember the very first time that I went in there, and I want to say I was probably like right around 40, maybe like 40-ish. And I walked in there and I was like a kid seeing something amazing for the first time. And I just stared, watched all the glaze go over and go down the whole I think I was in there for an hour just watching the assembly line,
Oh yeah.
It's so
amazing. We call it internally, and sometimes you'll see it on some of the stores. It's called a donut theater. We like to call it that because imagine it's kind of like the curtain of glaze, the waterfall of glaze, encompassing all the donuts. So it's just so amazing to watch that being produced. And it's funny. Sometimes you'll see like imperfect donuts coming down the line just because, something happens. They don't raise right or something like that. And it's like, you want to eat those too. They're just so amazing just to have them. And this aroma. If you stand in a donut shop long enough in one of our shops, you'll be like, it's just so enticing just to smell it. So I find it incredible.
Well, that's
funny.
funny.
To decorate too. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, you try to what?
I've tried to decorate too. And some Valentine's days and some other times I've decorated donuts and it's fun. I haven't decorated in probably about 2 years, but it is absolutely hilarious to watch me try to decorate because that's not my forte.
Not mine either.
I've had a chance to like do the whole twist that you do at the end of the donut to make the icing spread thin and spread across. And it's just an amazing process to watch. You almost need to be a craftsman, artsman to be able to do it. It's amazing.
Yeah, the donut crafts people, right?
That's right.
So when you first came on to Krispy Kreme, what was your reason for applying there? I guess would be the first question. Like, why Krispy Kreme did you apply there?
Well, I had heard about the brand my whole life, and I was actually recruited because of some of the work I had done in other industries, and just people had seen some of the unique things I might take social media to the next level. And I like to challenge platforms, and I like to challenge my industry to rise the bar a little higher. And so it was an opportunity to take a smaller brand to the footprint size and really expand and make it look much larger. And that's where the growth story comes in and the opportunity for growth. And I had audited, of course, all the social channels on the back end. And I was like, look at the opportunities and look at how many people beyond my passion for the brand and my experiences personally, I looked at the wealth of opportunities to really take a very beloved brand and a brand where people were very close and engaged to it. Not that that gives you a level up or leg up, but it was a wonderful opportunity to say, you know what, there's a lot of love. How do we harvest all the love? And then what do you do with that and turn it into also great relationships and great experiences with people? So that was one of the things. And also just the fact you could see that we were just touching the surface a little bit with just having a presence.
Wow, I love that. Wait, now you've been there, what, 7 years now?
7 years in May.
How come you're not like weighing 300 pounds? Do you not eat any donut? Or do you exercise really hard?
Well, I actually play a lot of sports too, but I eat like one donut a month or 2 donuts a month, maybe 3. I've had one setting where I've had like 4 or 5. It's all a treat whenever you want it to be the right treat. But also our donuts don't really have as high calories. It's a perception sometimes that people have. Like an original glaze is only 190 calories.
It is?
Yes, that's right. Isn't that amazing? So I could add that into my normal calorie count in a day.
Yeah. But how can you have just one? It's like a potato chip. You can't eat just one.
That's right.
Well, okay, what's the most number of donuts you've eaten in one sitting?
I've had 5. And also I've had halves of others. And I actually made donuts for 8 hours one day. And it was pretty amazing as part of they call it Donuts Made Easy internally. And it's kind of like, how do you fill? How do you decorate? It also helps if you don't immerse yourself in getting a chance, even though you love it and you don't see how much is behind it, you really don't get a true perspective of what it takes to make such a wonderful donut experience. There's something I think the world's trying to tap into is like, how do you express joy or what is this happiness that you feel from eating a donut? A lot of it is experiential. Like, you'll have this, incredible experience. And imagine you'll have like word of mouth experience or someone will have shared it with you, this terrific experience. But until you actually see how it's being made, then it connects the dots into some experience that you're also having too, because it's made with a lot of love and the machines are all made by Krispy Kreme. And so it's just pretty amazing to see that kind of, again, craftsmanship behind it all.
Now that's a great point right there, like talking about social media, right? So how do you take then the person's experience and share that in a way that you can then bring more people to your brand? Because that's what we're talking about. Like, how do you use social media to have people experience what you're experiencing so that they want to share some more?
That's right. And some of it's through, you'll have a lot of people in a lifetime or in a small time trying to challenge you to like, hey, why don't you be like this brand? Or why don't you be like that brand?
Yeah.
But whenever you follow or you go astray and you decide, well, I'm going to be like this other brand that I've seen, or I want to be like this, that's whenever you start really shifting and you're not listening to your fans. And so staying on course and being true to your fans, but also taking them to new experiences, but without like shifting who you are is important. Because, for instance, we might try brand new donuts that are very innovative and very unique to us that no one's done before. Like we might take over a glaze we saw like in the eclipse in August of last year, where we basically took all of our original glaze. It was the first time we turned it into a chocolate glaze. And to create that brand new, unique experience to our fans was kind of a cool experience.
Wait, you had a chocolate glazed donut? Like the glaze was chocolate?
Yes, we turned for the first time in our history, we turned the glazed chocolate here in the U.S. And, a lot of people, if you remember seeing the eclipse, it was cool, the pattern that it went across or the path that it went across the U.S. Yeah. But a lot of places people heard about and they'd seen it online and they're kind of like, hey, I can't wait to play, to go and watch the eclipse. But it was kind of a letdown. So at the
Yeah.
same time, us eclipsing our donuts became a unique experience that you could have an eclipse experience at our shops. Again, we're taking to a different place and we're eclipsing our donuts. And so it became a very kind of unique experience as well. And so we also then this year, at the beginning of the year, did a vote for glaze where we let our fans, again, sharing in the things that we hear them say and the things that they do. We let them vote on 4 very popular flavors that had resonated with a lot of them and helped to choose. And so they became empowered themselves to be able to help pick the next donut that we're going to create in April.
So is the chocolate glazed donut still out there, or was that a one-day thing?
It was a one-day thing, but stay tuned. There's lots of demand for that, so you never know.
I bet. Do they just like add cocoa powder to the glaze? I mean, how do you make a chocolate glaze?
It's a unique formulation, but it's basically you take our current formulation and then, and we've had lots of research on that. We have food scientists that have definitely been working on that. They're innovative chefs. So it's pretty cool to see that process. It's, again, they beyond the cocoa, but it's actually formulating it to best fit our quality and to make the glaze look as beautiful as possible too.
Well, let's talk about, if you don't mind talking about that product testing, right? So you guys had this idea, you thought it would be cool. Let's put it out there. Let's try it out. Let's see what the people think. And then we'll pull it. And then what do you do at that point? You then talk about it, decide whether it's something that's good enough to bring out again. And then what's the process to then launch it?
Well, in some cases, it's like if you see maybe in a test market, we might have something running out there and see how people like it and to see. So that's what we had done in a local market here in North Carolina. In a cool flagship store, we decided to make the donut and just to see during certain hours if people wanted to try it hot, for instance. And so we tested it for the first time as a hot chocolate product. We don't call it hot chocolate, for instance, but served hot. And we advertised the times that people could come and try it, and also knew that we might run out at a certain time. But basically organically did it, except for we did a few social posts and all on Facebook, really, because of just the geo-targeting, and also did an email push to the small fan base of people. And we had people waiting in line for hours, and it became like this just phenomenal event. And so then the word of mouth power kept spreading and spreading, and the more people started spreading, we didn't want the world to get confused about it. So we didn't really do any press about it or any kind of releases. We kept it very, very local, and it started spreading. I mean, more people started talking about it. And then it's like, you know what, this does seem like it's a good idea, and it's a good opportunity to spread to the world. And we can do this. And so that was a good kind of live test for people. And we did that months before we actually brought out the chocolate glaze.
Oh, okay. So then you pull it off the market because you're doing like a one-time thing. And then what's the process then for maybe like for the marketing? What's the campaign that goes into the next step to like launch it full on? Like this is going to be one of our donuts.
Okay. So for that, basically what we did is we planned out kind of our full comm plan, and we looked at, what makes sense from a timing. And usually we looked at, what we had put into it in the teasing part, and then how do we amplify it even more? We also based upon other campaigns and their performances and just the general KPIs that we had set and where we wanted to establish. And then also looked at, can we meet the demands by the volume that we have created? Because we found a precise time to post that made sense. It was actually going ahead of a trending hashtag, and we just posted it out there. And we're kind of like, you know what? It's before the world's talking about it right now. And our planning and the creative, we also had tested creative in that test that we had done. So we realized that creative was perfect. It worked exactly the way we needed to. We just needed to fine tune because of some confusion that we had picked up. So once we got the creative picked up and we had that all flighted, then we also made sure we had our media plan in place, our paid, our owned, and our earned. And in the instances where we needed to maybe pause the paid because there was so much earned chatter or there was so much owned spread, we held the paid until we could get the green light to go, or it made sense to go with any paid. At the same time, the rest of the way that we planned and prepared, we just knew it was going to be scalable. So if we have like one shop or two shops that are participating, we knew we were going to scale it up to 300, but understand that maybe not all will produce or all will be a part of it. It's just, and then we let some of our franchisees, or we let all of our franchisees opt in. And so those that felt like, we're going to do this, and we're all in, they would be a part of it. And so that's how, once we learned who was all in, that's how we could scale to make it even a larger portion of the plan. And then as part of it, again, like I said, the assets developed, having them all printed or having digital assets that go on all of our location pages make complete sense to just kind of plan it out as we go along. Then also looking at what we wanted our anticipated reach to be, again, based upon demand and volume and gauging that out. And then also we knew that a 2-week window would make complete sense for us to be able to talk about it during that time, because it was a summertime event. And also, with back to school, so many other things that are happening. There's so many other conversations that were happening at the time. Like finding that perfect window to actually have it out there as an announcement. But then how do we sustain it during that time? So as part of the communications planning, just making sure we had enough relevant content and enough that would actually break through algorithms successfully. And we know, of course, what content performs best. It's what's true to us. And so we looked at, this makes sense. This is spreadable for influencers. We picked a handful of influencers ahead of time. They weren't paid influencers at that time. They were ones that we gave them a cool shirt that we had. It was a shirt that was Eclipse 2018. And I gave them a little package of things to take with them. And so once they had that packet, they could be some of our best spokespeople for, if you will, for the event. And a lot of them started talking. One of them we had actually seen, we had picked him up because he had been chasing one of our big events that we had. He literally drove for 3 hours round and round in circles watching the line at one of our stores, at one of our events. Wow. And he kind of had a day in the life of Krispy Kreme. So it's pretty funny to see. So used very passionate fans like that were willing to have fun and want to have a great experience.
That's so awesome. I love that. You drove around for 3 hours.
I know.
How do you guys decide how much ad money to spend? And do you do Facebook ads only? Do you do Google ads? Google AdWords? What do you guys spend? What do you use the ad spend on?
So we use it. So we look at a balance of what makes sense of what's our potential reach that we might have, or a benchmark of impressions that we want to reach based upon previous campaigns or based upon attachment from other previous offerings or events or things along those lines, just to make sure we were at X bar once we had done X paid or X organic. And so looking at that, that's where we kind of gauge this is what we should pay. We also weigh then that we know maybe there's sporting events happening or there's some seasonality that we might be competing against. And so to break through, we look at potentially what partners make the most sense, the targeting making sense. And then we gauge that budget based upon priority level of that product or that event. And some we may go, hey, you know what? This is a brand new product. It's new. So we know that if it's, we've never had it before, we don't know where it may go. So we might plan to ramp up even more at first. And so we buy on Facebook, do all kinds of other digital banners, Twitter, Instagram, Google search. There's certain things, though, that make sense. They're better for AdWords just because of the fact that, fundraising, for instance, we know a lot of people are interested in doing fundraisers, but doing a lot of social posts about it, you're not going to reach people at the right time, the right place. It's a specific audience. We can and we will do paid Facebook ads for fundraising, but it's not a general message for a lot of people because there's people that are interested or there's potential fundraisers. But for us, we felt like that wasn't necessarily a good platform for all fundraising messages for that particular instance of what we're trying to target colleges, which makes sense. But it wasn't a mass message for all. So we tried to narrow it down to what was more effective for us. Then when it comes to a lot of event targeting, so if we're doing events, we're event related, 1-day events, it makes sense to be on Facebook and use all of our locations and target around all of our stores and keep it around a radius that makes sense. Because we know some of our fans will drive 4 hours, but we don't want to cast the net to the world. We want to geo-target and kind of make sure it's localized at least within a 5 to 10 mile radius around a location. And then from there, we just kind of grow as we go.
That is so amazing to have a product that people will drive 4 hours to eat. Don't I know?
It is. I've seen people also wait in line for 3 hours again. They'll drive 2 hours, 3 hours. We had the best story probably about a year ago that I heard. I've seen a lot come out in this year too, but this couple decided, they want to get out. They want to get out in the middle of a snowstorm, have a great time. And they walked to one of our locations. And unfortunately, the snow was so bad. They had actually walked 30 minutes. And it was about a 3 to 5 mile walk in the middle of what would be about 15 inches of snow. And to imagine that they walked and then our store was closed. So we saw and they'd posted and they were like, oh, how sad is this? Because we didn't get a chance to really alert the world at that time. We were trying to get there, but we just weren't sure when it was going to close. So after we had seen their story and that they walked, we never closed, but we had to. It's just the weather conditions were so bad. We invited them back though and did a special donut date just for them, and we reserved off part of the restaurant just for them as well. And so it became very cool. It was a chance that we had tables set up, and we had placemats and everything else that were set up just for them, and made it like a romantic setting, because it was just so great that they would be willing to do that in the middle of a snowstorm. So if we do things like that, it's good to kind of do something unique in store for them.
To give that customer that experience, like they'll be, they were already a Krispy Kreme fan, but now they're like a multi raving fan, right? I mean,
yes.
and that, that's a great point right there, because that one story right there also makes other people say, Krispy Kreme cares. Like, they actually really care. It's not only about making money. And that's true too, because you guys have this amazing fundraising program that you put on. And do you want to share a little bit about the fundraising program and how it has done for the company?
Yeah, it's funny. We don't have the actual start date for it. We believed it started in the 1950s, looking at historical documents. And so imagine throughout time, and the way that it's actually done, it's very simple. We have, you sell fundraising cards, you have donuts to sell as fundraisers, and coffee, and then these other little certificates. And so it's like very few items that, we sell, but people can actually just take it and do it in 24 hours without having to do a lot of legwork to be able to get it done. They could actually plan a fundraiser and plan out what their profits are going to be. We've had profitability calculators and all kinds of other forms. And basically they can decide, you know what, I'm either going to prepay by as much as I could imagine to sell, or either we can help plan with them and help them forecast what that projection could be. Or if they have a goal in mind, we also have a dedicated person now that is just literally is at a call center. You can call at any time and talk to a live person that's like helping you figure out what's the best fundraiser for you. And historically, we've worked with community organizations, with schools, and any kind of other organization that's like a 501c3 ready event organization, and also even corporations that want to do a fundraiser for some other philanthropic kind of group. And they will we'll just give them very simple paperwork to fill out. It's again a quick process, and then they can have that fundraiser turned around within less than 24 hours. They can have it within the same day, but if they're going to order tens of thousands of donuts, then it does help to have a little bit of a time, a little bit of a chance to put it together. And in some cases, in some markets, we'll deliver it to people. In other markets, it will arrange whatever it makes sense along those lines. But I noticed, like in Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, for instance, our donuts are not, of course, everywhere across the state. We only have like 3 or 4 shops in that state. But some fundraising groups will drive an hour to be able to sell the donuts for their band or for their organization. And it's the one time Krispy Kreme's brought like once a month or once a year to their group. And so it's, again, people will drive quite a distance to be able to bring it out there. And we've seen some groups too will drive 3 or 4 hours to do that as well. It's kind of like bringing donuts to the masses for a good cause. And the stories that you hear, like people are able to send like their bands or their choirs or whomever on great experiences and tours that they couldn't necessarily be able to do it without it. And in one year, I think or the last year, I think it was like $35 million raised in fundraising. So it's pretty phenomenal. And that's across the 311 domestic stores. So again, just imagine that.
That's a lot of donuts.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I've done a lot of fundraising for the last 18 years. I've done fundraising events for various causes. And I mean, I did a Krispy Kreme fundraiser. And like you said, it's very simple. So if you are a 501c3, or if you want to raise some money for a 501c3, reach out to Krispy Kreme and find out what they can do. And that's cool that you guys have somebody who's dedicated to helping answer those questions, like which is the right one for you, because you might think but really, it's possible that what you're thinking, which fundraising event you want to do, might not really be the best one for you and your organization. So definitely reach out. You guys find that out. See, I have a couple more questions here. When is Krispy Kreme going to do a Super Bowl ad? I could totally see.
Well, we actually do not do television advertising at this time.
You don't need to.
No. And again, with the social media and the efforts that we have behind that, at this point, we haven't. Super Bowl is a great reach, and it's, again, wonderful opportunity to be in front of a lot of people, but we necessarily haven't looked at doing a lot of media buys like that. And again, we get lot of traction from social media and digital as well. We do some out of home. You'll see a billboard here maybe, or you'll see some unique bus signs and train signs and things like that. But nothing in the foreseeable future that I've seen, but maybe it could. I'm not saying it couldn't happen, but possibility.
I don't know, but for some reason came to mind a donut wrestling contest, like like mud wrestling, but for donuts.
We have a lot of wrestlers that love us and that will talk to us. And it's funny, you'll see like the WWE SmackDown or something like that happening, and all of a sudden you'll see Krispy Kreme pops up. And then all of a sudden, there we go again. It's kind of a funny thing because in general, our brand gets, there are 3 mentions per every minute of our Krispy Kreme across the globe. Wow. And imagine then when certain sporting events happen or certain relevant events happen, we don't insert ourselves into that. It's just that sometimes our fans bring us into it. It's not like we, it's like people will bring us to that event. And also when like NFL, for instance, we partner with Carolina Panthers here in North Carolina. But then there's other partnerships that we have like Denver Broncos or other sports teams across the U.S. And sometimes that's with a franchisee. Right now we're doing a big hockey kind of a partnership right now with the Vegas Knights. And if you see anything about that, we just, again, it's a very young team that just started out, and we've been giving out like for shutouts. We'll do certain giveaways and donut giveaways. And it's so wonderful to start out with like a franchise group like that, and then just keep building. And then you see it's already there on social, or it's building a social presence. And watching those go together is an amazing experience. It's kind of like, again, with the Panthers, they used to be, or they may still maintain this title, being the number 2 social NFL team in the country. And so you'd watch them and you watch this engagement, and you attract so many, a new audience, and they become like rallying fans that every time a football game comes on, they're right there on social and they're cheering along. They're wanting you to play. And so there's so many opportunities like that. It's like, ooh, this is like, a fun moment. And across the globe, we see that happening, whether it's the World Cup or whether it's like the NFL in the UK or any other significant event. It's all of a sudden, it's like fans bring it there, or they interact with us at that moment. I haven't seen one in the past years that I haven't seen like a significant event somehow that we haven't been brought into it. So it's a lot. It's amazing. Even like I think Miss America too, or one of the Miss America contestants, she started tweeting out and she started like talking about Krispy Kreme as part of one of her platforms. And I was like, oh, this is just amazing to see, because then it's unaided. It's just her love and her passion. So to see that, it was like, it's different. You'll see like, again, people you would not expect would be so passionate about just things that they talk about top of mind, and to see that play out in real life is great. It's something you just can't necessarily, it's authentic, and it's authentic to us.
And that's really key, right? That authenticity. Mm-hmm. So what recommendation would you have for someone just getting started in a business, or maybe they've been in a business for a while and their social media is not really that engaged? What recommendation would you make to help them boost that engagement, or at least start it kind of on a trajectory so there's some momentum behind it?
First I would say always having someone to, whether it's a friend or a friend in the industry, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a big financial commitment, or it can be, but you can look at somebody just to do a complete audit, and also watch and listen from your own point of view, get a fresh set of eyes to come in. And even if you're not following a formal audit, making up what you might be like, well, how do I like my favorite brand away, and why do I like my favorite brand? How do they engage with others on social? And how can I bring that in, again, relevant to my brand that makes sense? And then do testing as you decide you've audited it. Now you're kind of like, what, maybe it was the messaging, maybe it's the creative, or maybe it's the time of day, and use native tools. And there's a lot of inexpensive tools or free tools that are out there that you could use and say, what, this is not the best time for me to post. This is not the best resource for me to be using at this time. Or, what, I've got a one-store shop, a boutique that I'm starting out. It doesn't make sense for me to create a Twitter account at this point, because I don't have enough content to generate or yield that constant conversation. So maybe I'm going to start out on Instagram and Facebook, or I might just start on Instagram, for instance, and build one presence at a time, or build 2 presents at a time, but not go in and be like all gung-ho to like create 5 or 6 different accounts that you can't keep up with, because you might overwhelm yourself. I always tell people that first you're going to look at how much content can I commit to, how relevant can I commit to being, And then also, what kind of things would I want to say if I'm going to plan out a calendar? What would make the most sense for me in my organization? And then also understand, well, how do people relate to my brand? And I step out, like a lot of times I'll go to conferences and people will say, just give me 30 seconds of your time. What would you do differently about my brand? And so I'll tell them then what I think they may want to do differently about the brand. And just throw out here's a quick thing. I've studied it, or I've looked at it, or I have an experience, and challenge yourself to get to where you want to be and what you're proud of. Like, would you even follow your own self? And I think that's important to hold people to. Because if you're not proud of what you're posting, or you're not proud of your presence, then how do you get to what you do feel proud about? But also, don't let your own personal mind and posting and voice take over, because your company might have a different persona or a different purpose. It may be a part of who you are, but you can't force your personality on either a smaller group or the masses. It's just what, test out and feel how people experience your brand. And a lot of times I see, though, people are very passionate about like causes and their community, and sometimes they start talking in that voice of themselves as an individual, and they forget that they're talking in the voice of a brand or an organization. But now, if that organization is based upon certain foundation or fundamentals, makes sense. Add that personality to it, but stay true to that personality. Don't abandon it and don't give it up, because then you're going to be like two different voices, or you're going to have like a bipolar personality, and you're going to have a hard time attracting a lot of people. I even say that too with people that are bilingual and have bilingual accounts. Well, I'll say, why don't you post and the opportunities that you either create two separate accounts, one for one language, one for the other language, or if you're going to commit to posting bilingually, commit to it. Don't, just post one day in English, one day in another language, and one day in English again, because you're going to have a lot of people that are going to see it. And these tools are so good, or the native platforms are so good at where you can target to the right language, or you can craft your branding to be like, this is my English account, or this is my Spanish, this is my French Canadian account. And so you can watch people jump off or not be engaged because you're not posting in what they want to hear, or either you're not setting the pacing or the tone of what they need to see as well.
I love that. One of my friends, she's bilingual. She's a love coach, and she does English, Spanish. She does the translation right there. So she'll do like a sentence in English and then Spanish, English, Spanish. And it's really awesome because as an English, speaker myself, I listen and I get to hear her native tongue as well.
Yes.
And it's really, it makes it more interesting and intriguing to watch her. So I think I love that idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. It does really help a lot.
Well, when I see you at Social Media Marketing World, I'm going to ask you for 30 seconds of your time to share with me what I should do differently with my brand. I love it.
Sure thing. Anytime.
So is there anything you want to the final, the last thing was the global opportunities and vehicles to match your brand. What is that all about?
So, and sometimes if you think about, so we are a location-based restaurant. We're not necessarily at this point, you can't really find other than our merchandise. You're not going to be able to buy donuts online at this time. We're just not quite there. So if you look at platforms where, for instance, let's see Facebook. If you're not taking advantage of Facebook locations and you're not putting all of your locations out there and creating unique profiles for it, you're doing yourself an injustice for an opportunity to get great organic reach, great reach in a community, building out a community. So that's one instance. In other cases, like for Instagram as well, we have a lot of people that will contact us all the time in our franchise organization, and they'll say, should we create like 5 different accounts for like the San Francisco Bay Area because there's like 5 locations? And it's like, well, first of all, can you commit to unique enough content between those 5 locations that it would make sense to yield, doing all of that? Also, then it's like, well, do you have enough new news that makes sense to keep up, or can you keep it relevant enough and localized enough to make sense there, or to relate to your fans enough? Because sometimes as you think about whether you're a content creator or a content curator, it's totally different to watch people and watch how they respond to you. And you could have influencers, you could have user-generated content, but it has to be relevant to make sense, of course. You wouldn't be showing like images of warming up in the winter whenever it's sunny and very hot outside and using just repurposed corporate images. You would want to have something that makes sense locally for your area. So then if you're going to commit to creating 5 unique accounts, then why don't you create unique enough content? But then imagine you've got to be resourced enough to have that. So in that recommendation, it was like, you know what, it makes sense for you to do a Bay Area account. And at this point, it'll make sense to do something along those lines because you have enough new news in that Bay Area that's different from some of the other markets around you. So then you can maintain that. It's feasible. You set your pacing and setting that kind of tone. Now, for across the globe, too, it's in some cases, people say, you know what, I should probably be on Twitter, and I'm in, I don't know, let's say Malaysia. Well, if the audience is not really there and you use something like, say, TweepsMap, for instance, and you're looking at how many people are on Twitter in Malaysia, well, you wouldn't want to necessarily create an account that doesn't have a fan base or isn't as active. You would want to first go for the low-hanging fruit that would be, where's the largest base at? Or where's my fan base at, and do find a presence there. And again, there's so many tools that you can see, like who's actually either talking about your brand, around your brand. There's enough to do listening, or we actually tell people, hey, let us do a listening report for you, and we can tell you, what are the top platforms to be on outside of Facebook, which Facebook generally just makes sense for everyone.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then there's other kind of smaller platforms like Pinterest. We love Pinterest, and Pinterest is great. We have a lot of craveable content, but Pinterest keeps a brand top of mind. But until we're doing e-commerce, for us, unless we're creating a lot of recipe content or content that's relevant for Pinterest, we shouldn't try to be on Pinterest 24/7 because we're not making content that matches that, or either we don't have the budget to create the content that's worthy of being on Pinterest. And you take what you can and work with what you can and the restraints that you may have, or the opportunities that you may have, and try to make it best for that platform. Also, for a while, I would say if you look at our Instagram account, we started from the time I've been here from scratch, and we saw it worked and saw it didn't work, but we had people challenging us like, hey, you should put this content on here, and you should put that. And it's like, no, that's not right for Instagram. But it helped from a global perspective to show certain countries that, you know what, this actually works for you, but it doesn't work for us in the way we've developed the brand as a global presence. It doesn't always portray itself right, or it doesn't always have great content, great engagements or a great relevance. And it might work great for your market, but it may not be good for the all and for the masses. So that's where kind of from a global platform, finding out what's right and the way you approach that platform the best. And so it's doing a full audit, creating the content strategy, the full global strategy, and the social playbook that encompassed all of those details, and really helping people to kind of gauge and figure that out too. It's also with the hashtag strategy too. It's you see people use hashtags sometimes to the overkill, and that's the only way they tried. And for a while, people were trying to constantly communicate on that. And then even as you've watched that, brands and people have said, you know what, I'm not going to use as many hashtags, or basing kind of what they need to do. And it's kind of correcting where people overcorrect, or they think that that's how they need to be relevant to get the most eyes. Or when, GIFs hit the peak of popularity, you'd see that some of our franchisees would say, you know what, we just need to post only GIFs on Facebook. Well, that's interesting that you did that for a while, but only posting GIFs on Facebook's not going to work for you for a long time, because craveability or the sensory or the sensation that you would get from wanting a donut, seeing a cartoon figure dancing as a donut, isn't necessarily helping to make more people crave our products or engage the way that people are wanting a food porn style. And it doesn't help to trigger off that Peruvian bell that you see a donut or you see the hot light. It makes you want to go get a donut. So that's what I mean in that context.
I love it. That's awesome. And one thing that I think was really, really important out there that you just mentioned was that, first of all, making sure you find the platform that works for your brand, as well as the audience has the audience that you want. And don't shovel poop against the tide by putting yourself on, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and you can't handle all that. So it's really important, I think, to maybe find one, like you said, one or two that really works, and just hammer them and make those your platform. Is that kind of what I'm thinking? That's
exactly it. And there's some that can be great tertiary vehicles too, because for instance, like Snapchat on an event day, using geotag filters makes complete sense while people are in shops, they're having good times, they're standing around, they're engaging. It's like a celebration, but it's not necessarily going to be a traffic driver in some instances. unless we apply that, you have to show your filter, show yourself, and this, whatever you've done, and you stop and you took a pose and you sent a bunch of snaps. That's not necessarily going to help drive foot traffic that we're trying to accomplish. So then once we make that investment, the ROI might not make sense if we're working with a lower budget. So try to look at how do we prioritize the channels that we're on, that we can be on more, but we don't have to be dedicated to be on them all the time. It's kind of like our YouTube strategy. You'll see us like we've been constantly posting content, and for a while it was like, oh yeah, let's show a new store opening. Well, new store openings are great and they're wonderful, and it gave us a chance to use like young talent that were like either in high school or college that were just basically like, hey, I'm a new videographer and I want to show you what I can do, and they would capture a moment. But most people want to see more of the donuts, not necessarily like watching people standing in line. That's not the same thing as them experiencing. So kind of changed our positioning on that and went to creating the more relevant content that made sense and what we could again afford within restraints and budgets along those lines.
Oh, fantastic. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to meet you in person in 2 weeks. And how can people get in touch with you if they're interested in reaching out?
Sure. Directly on Twitter, it's Kelley OB, KELLEYOB. And if you leave off the E, you'll meet one of my friends that we've met through Twitter. And so we have some challenges. You can find me, of course, through Krispy Kreme. You can always like tweet or Krispy Kreme and find me on the back end there too, or Instagram. It's the same for Kelley. It's KELLEYOB. And also Krispy Kreme. So Krispy Kreme across the board, all the platforms you can find us is just Krispy Kreme. And myself, you could also email me directly at kobrien@krispykreme.com or on LinkedIn as Kelley L. O'Brien. So again, that's definitely a way to find me.
You guys, she's so amazing. I love everything you have to share. And I know there's a lot more that we could get into, but with time, I'll get into a lot of that with you when I see you at Social Media Marketing World. And when are you flying in?
I'm flying on the 27th. So, and I've never been to San Diego, so I'm going to get a chance to go see a couple things. I've been in California several times, but I just have not been to San Diego. So it'll be a chance for me to experience it. I'm going to be there from start to finish. So
fantastic. Well, I hope to connect with you. Maybe we can connect on the 27th. We'll talk about that offline. Okay.
All right. Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks, Kelley, so much and I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you really soon.
You as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.